Good morning again, guys. Still Wednesday. So I wanted to talk about something that apparently happened a couple of weeks ago, but is just hitting the news and causing a huge uproar all over the place. Now, we've all talked about balkanization, the division within the country, be it left right paradigm, or as the Democrats are trying to do to drastically separate the country based on race, based on economics, based on pick something. Okay. I mean, divide, 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 divide is the whole mantra of the liberal left at this point. But a couple of weeks ago, Ted Cruz, y'all know him, senator from Texas, was at I'd say giving a speech, but at a gathering, if you will, at Texas A&M down in College Station. And they got to talking about something that comes up all the time: Texas seceding from the United States. Okay. And there is this, for lack of any better way to put it, folklore that Texas has the right to secede from the United States. Okay. I'm not a legal scholar. Don't pretend to be one. Don't play one on TV. Nothing of the sort. Okay. There's arguments on both sides of it. I'm just kind of giving you the facts here. Okay. There is nothing in the Texas Constitution that says Texas can secede. However, the Texas Constitution does say that Texas is a free and independent state subject only to the Constitution of the United States. It doesn't say anything about subject to the President of the United States or subject to the Congress of the United States or subjective to the collective will of any of the other states. Okay. So it's, like everything else in law, legal gray area. Okay. But so back to what Ted Cruz was saying. All right. And he basically told the crowd that if Democrats continue to fundamentally destroy the country with their deviant woke experiments, there may come a point in time where the situation is deemed hopeless. I think we're getting pretty close to that. All right. He mentions stuff that they were doing, packing the Supreme Court, making Washington, D.C. a state, all the other loony things that the Democrats are trying to do to consolidate power so they can be dictators, so they can never be won again, or they can never lose again. All right. And so at that point, Cruz came up and says, Texas could take NASA, take the military, and take the oil and leave. Okay. Take your ball and go home. Now you think about what that means is, the LBJ Space Center is in Texas. Okay. There's NASA. 41% of all the U.S. oil reserves are in Texas, and there's over a dozen major military installations in Texas. Yeah, okay, that gives you, NASA, okay, fine, whatever. But, the oil and the military, yeah, that gives you the basis for starting your own country. Surely give you that. I know everybody will come up and say, and I totally agree, what do you do with Texas's portion of the national debt, or how do people collect Social Security, or what? And yes, nobody ever said it was going to be easy if they ever tried it, which I don't know how it would be done. Like I said, I'm not a legal scholar. Okay. But the point of me telling that basis is what it would do to the rest of us. Okay. Not all of us live in Texas, all right? And as much as the people in Texas say, we want out, we're going to, Texit, okay? Which, sure, it can be done. And again, I'll go into the same thing again, where, there's plenty of legal scholars who say, nope, it can't be done. You can't secede from the United States. Yeah, you can. Okay, and I'll give you a perfect example. Texas seceded in 1861. So did a whole lot of other states. That was the Civil War. Okay, after the Civil War was over, Texas was reinstated as a state in 1870. Okay, so give you that. Yes, secession is possible. What's going to come with it? A civil war. What have we talked about over and over and over again is that may be the direction the United States is heading, with the split between, again, I'll just put it this way, capitalists and communists. Right? That's where we are. But so I want you to take a look at something. This is what would happen to the rest of the country if, in fact, Texas did disappear. So take a look at this map. Now, Texas has 40 electoral votes. Okay, so that's where they stand after the 2020 census. And so here's a map, and I put this together and took Texas out. So this is what the United States would look like without Texas. Now, we all know in a election, okay, as it stands right now, with Texas being a country, you need 270 electoral votes to win. Now, I'm going off of this because, and this isn't going to be totally accurate, but it's going to give you the general idea. Simple reason: if Texas disappeared as a state, then the percentages of population in all the other countries would change the electoral votes a little bit, but the general principle is still here. All right. So this is what the U.S. would look like without Texas. And at that point, instead of having 538 votes or 538 total electoral votes in the United States, we'd have 498. Okay, take out the 40. That would mean in order to win the election, you would have to become president. Okay, you would have to win 250 electoral votes. Okay, 50% plus one. Well, 498 is 299, or I'm sorry, 249 plus one, 250. If you take a look at this map, and for the sake of argument, let's go historically way things lean. And I'm not going to, I know Maine splits 3-1 and Nebraska splits 4-1, but just to make it easy, let's just say they go one way or the other. I'm also going to assume in here that Georgia and Arizona come back to normal, all right, and become red states again. I'm leaving Nevada as a blue state, though it looks like it might flip. I mean, obviously, none of this is perfect. And again, we're talking a couple of years out. But if you look on the top, you'll see the traditional Democrat states as of now. The Democrat candidate would have 219 electoral votes. The traditional Republicans, again, like I said, assuming Georgia and Arizona, flip back to red, assuming North Carolina stays red. That would leave 5 swing states: Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and I guess now you can probably call Virginia a swing state. But take a look at this. If the GOP has 205 electoral votes and you need 250 to win, you would need to win, of those brown states there, 3, if not 4 of those states. I mean, you could, the GOP candidate could feasibly win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Virginia, which total between the 3 of those is 38 electoral votes. That gives them 243. They still don't win. Okay. This is why Texas staying in the U.S. is so important to the rest of the country, because if Texas does secede and become their own conservative state, okay, yeah, I know, Austin, DFW, that's fine. Maybe the Rio Grande region is a little more blue, but if Texas decides to become their own country, the rest of the United States practically instantly is forevermore left, far left as a country, because everything else, the chances of the GOP winning anywhere are slim to none. Okay. So what does that mean to the rest of us? Well, this is what we need to pay attention to, because Texas comes up with their talk on secession over and over and over again. And most of the time it does, well, never. Since 1870, it hasn't gone anywhere. But, nothing in life is permanent. One of these days, it could happen. So what happens to the people in Louisiana, Nebraska, Tennessee, Florida, whatever so would be? Okay. Now those countries have to pick a side, if you will. Are they going to, or states have to pick a side? Are they going to align themselves with Texas, or are they going to align themselves with the remaining United States? That's where we get into balkanization. That's where it gets real sticky, and that's where a civil/revolutionary war happens. Now, I'll give you the flip side of this too. The exact same thing could happen if California decided to become a independent nation. That the Democrats would never have another chance in hell of winning. Okay. So it works both ways. And I know so many people say, oh, but voting. I get your arguments, okay? Totally. To understand, no problems. I'm just pointing out, because there's a lot more talk all the time of Texas seceding than California seceding. Texas, sometimes you hear the stories of breaking up into 5 separate states so they can get more senators in Washington. Well, California talks about the same thing about breaking up into 3 or 4 states so they can get more representation. This is the game that's being played, guys. But this is, an outlier, but it's something that you need to pay attention to in the current climate that we are in with the whole one world order. Which side, what's going to happen to the United States? As I've said many, many, many times, the World Economic Forum, the one world government, the deep state, whatever you want, none of this can ever happen unless the U.S. is on board. Now, that comes into my question then. Define the U.S. Because if the U.S. does fall apart, i.e. this example here, okay, sure, you may have the left coast, New England, the Atlantic Seacoast, whatever. They want to go join Klaus Schwab and the cast of crazies, but the rest of the country may fall into line with Texas, and then we have even more chaos than we've got now. Oh, and just a last piece of information. Yes, Ted Cruz said all this in tongue-in-cheek a little bit. Wasn't totally serious, but you think about, people don't say things unless there's an iota of seriousness to it. But when he said Joe Rogan was going to be president of Texas, I think that was probably a non-starter. No. So, all right. But I just wanted to give you that, because this stuff does come up and it's in the news lately. And of course, you're going to hear stories and people talk about it. So I just wanted to kind of give you the realistic point of view on what it would actually mean. So have a good Wednesday afternoon. Hope you're staying dry, staying warm. Pinball out.